Oh, hello. You must be here because you want answers to the study guide. I'm on to y'all. Hopefully, you're doing well in our extended time away from each other. It just so happens that I have a study guide right here. Hopefully, you have yours also so that you can kind of keep up with it. I will be providing the answers in a typed form. Should be, hopefully, at the bottom of this post on Google Classroom. That being said, miss y'all, no cap, right? Because that's what all the kids say. Anyway, so let's get on with it. Let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be over macroeconomics. So, of course, we know macro is the study of economics as a whole nation instead of just one small part, instead of just like the business of car washes. Maybe we're looking at the entire business structure and cycle of a country or the globe, all the countries in the world. That's definitely macro kind of stuff. Right, and this is a fancy word for that. It's called aggregate. Okay, so when we talk about aggregate, we're talking about all. Aggregate starts with A. All also starts with A. Holla, holla. That's what the kids say. Right, so don't forget that. That's going to be key. Moving down our list, right, we have four types of unemployment. We have cyclical unemployment, which is just basically like a cycle that happens, right? Cyclical cycle, right? So when the economy is going down, when it's getting weak, people have less money to spend, therefore they're going to buy less. And that's just a cycle, right? When you buy less, producers make less money, so they hire fewer people, and so on and so forth. And so, of course, that's a cycle, right? So, cyclical unemployment. An example might be cars. If the economy goes down, people are going to stop buying as many cars as they do now. And so, people might lose their job. That could be the car maker, it could be the person who sells you the car, so on and so forth. Next, we have our structural unemployment. And this is just caused by when changes happen in manufacturing, right, or in businesses. So, for example, Paul Bunyan, right? Paul Bunyan loses his job because they don't need his axe anymore. They have chainsaws or they have machines that do that, right? So, something has changed in the structure of the job or of the business. Okay. Next is frictional. This would be if you're quitting your job and you're looking for a new job, or maybe you were just really terrible at your job and now you're looking for a new job because you got fired. Anything there that basically causes you to lose your job and be looking for a new job could kind of fall underneath frictional unemployment. Then, of course, you have seasonal unemployment. That would be, Wally over here is working at um, the swimming pool as a lifeguard. Nobody goes swimming when it's 20 degrees outside, unless you're like a polar bear. And so Wally loses his job, right? Because polar bears don't need lifeguards because they can't sue if they drowned, right? Completely different than humans. So that would be our fourth type of unemployment. Next, we have GDP. That's gross domestic product, right? So that's everything that is manufactured, and we're talking finished goods, right? Finished goods that are made by a country, not just anything. Remember, if we're talking about oranges, right? If the orange is bought and then made into orange juice, the orange juice is counted in GDP, but the orange that was bought to make orange juice, not counted in GDP, right? But if you and I go and buy oranges and then we make our own orange juice at home, that we're not selling that. So that orange that we bought, right, as a consumer, counts towards GDP, right? So this is all the final goods and services produced in an economy that goes into GDP. Your country is going to be stronger if it has a higher GDP, right? Because they're making more things and they're producing more, and so that's bringing more income and more value to your country. Don't forget, children, students, happy people, sad people too. Don't forget this. GDP is made up of a bunch of different things, right? We're looking at consumer spending, some money that you and I would spend on something like clothing or a hamster cage, whatever it may be. So consumer spending plus investments. So investing in our 401k or investing in the stock market or buying a new tractor for the farm. Those would be investments, right? So consumer spending, investments, then government spending, so anything that the government spends money on, including government investments, and then of course our net exports. So that's exports minus imports, right? So if we spend $500 million on imports and then we export $600 million worth of things, in our GDP, that looks like $100 million worth of net exports, right? Of course, if you import more than you export, that's bad. You do not want to do that because it's just bad for your economy, right? You want to produce and sell things. You don't want to buy stuff. Okay. And of course, GDP looks at 1 year, 1 calendar year is what GDP looks at. Okay. Number four, draw and label the business cycle. Guys, you know this is coming, right? So just go home. Go home. You're already home, unless you're somewhere else looking at this video. But you're at home, hopefully doing the like cough into your elbow and wash your hands and like don't touch your face. But you're at home, right? Look at your business cycle map. Know what it is. Know how all that stuff kind of cycles, right? Then look at number five. What's the difference between tight money and easy money? If money's tight, you don't have as easy access to it, right? And so when we're talking about money, who controls money? That's the Federal Reserve. That happens at the national level, right? Because the United States, we print our own money. That's a national thing. Okay. So with tight money, the Federal Reserve tells banks you need to have a lot of money physically on hand. Okay, like in your banks that you haven't loaned out. Okay, because if you loan out money and people come to get their money, is it there? No, and that's bad because people want their money. Okay, and so when times get tight, when times get tough, you might have more tight money policies. Okay, the federal government wants banks to keep more money in reserve. Okay, so that money's tight. Easy money, that's where the federal government kind of loosens those reserves that are required. Okay, they say, hey, banks, lend out money, lend out money. You might generally have that if you're trying to grow the economy, right? Because you want the banks to lend out money to people. Okay, but easy money is when you have a lower reserve requirement, and then tight money is when you have a higher reserve requirement, right? And what does it mean to have a reserve requirement? This is just the percentage of money that banks are required to keep on hand and they cannot loan out, right? Because that's how banks make money, right? I put in $1,000, the bank turns around and loans that money to somebody else, and then they charge an interest rate. And then Walter over there has to pay it back, and then the bank gets the money, and I get a small, teeny tiny percent of that interest rate. Not much, because I'm not a bank. Anyway, number seven, national debt, right? That's how much money the federal government owes other people, other countries, individuals. That's different than national deficit. A deficit is how much over budget you are. Okay. Because of budget, right? Every year the country comes up with a budget, and then we always spend more because that's just where we're at right now. Okay. Look at the next three things: inflation, stagflation, deflation. Inflation is a rise in that consumer price index. Okay. And this is when demand is high and supply is short. We know about supply and demand, right? Hopefully from micro, but this is aggregate. This is national level kind of stuff. All right. So inflation is caused when consumer demand is high consumer demand is high. Yeah, that's right. And then supply is low. Okay. Because what happens if you have a higher demand than you have supply, the price rises. Okay. So we know that. And so this leads producers to charge more for their product. And then that is good because it typically leads to a rise in hiring. And so that because it brings more profit, and because it brings more profit, you want to make more. So you get to hire more people to make more product. Next is stagflation. This is when you have two bad things, right? You have rising prices and then also rising unemployment. Okay, so people can't afford to buy the product. Number one, because the price is high. Number two, because they don't have jobs. And when people don't have jobs, they can't buy stuff. And that's not good. Okay, so stagflation, pretty terrible stuff. And then deflation, this is when the prices fall. And so this is also pretty bad, right? Because if prices fall, manufacturers and producers lay people off of jobs, and it could become a cycle, right? And that's not good, right? So deflation is when the prices fall, and so manufacturers lay people off. Fiscal conservatives versus fiscal liberals, right? Fiscal is just a fun, fancy way of saying like money. And so a fiscal conservative person says, hey, we're going to have low taxes. The government's not going to spend a lot of money. A fiscal liberal might say, hey, the government's going to spend a lot of money on resources and programs and just different things. And so we're going to charge more taxes, right? That's all that is. Fiscally conservative says, let's not spend a lot of money, so we're not going to charge a lot in taxes. A fiscal liberal says, we're going to have a lot of stuff that you're going to get, but we're going to charge you taxes for it. Okay. Number 10, explain the difference and give examples of income and disposable income. Income is just all the money that you as a family make, or you as a person make, right? And so Gavin is working at Publix. Hopefully that's going well for you. Hopefully you haven't been super busy, by the way, Gavin. But if Gavin is working at Publix, the money that he's making is his income. Now, of course, we all know that Gavin doesn't bring home all of the money that he makes. Why not? Close, very close. All right, that is because Gavin has to pay taxes. All of us have to pay taxes, unless you're working under the table, which in that case you probably don't pay taxes. Right, but Gavin has to pay taxes, and so the money he makes after he pays taxes is called disposable income. Right, so income is all the money he makes, in theory, because we know that really, when it's all said and done, the government's going to take money, and so disposable income is what is left over after taxes. Right, then you have a bunch of vocab words, which you should know. I will go ahead and return those quizzes to you so that you can study those vocab ones and see what you missed and all that kind of stuff. Now, guys, make sure that you go back and you look through your BFF, the blue floppy book, right? And make sure that you've read it. It does a really good job of putting things in terms that even y'all can understand. All right, so go back, look at it, make sure all these vocab words, especially, that you can use them and kind of figure things out. We'll go ahead and plan on y'all taking that test next week, obviously. I'll release it on Tuesday. Now, here's the thing. You're going to have let's say a 12-hour block for you to take that test, okay? No notes, no book, all that kind of stuff. Y'all know the drill. Don't use your friend. Don't be texting and like snappy chatting and all that kind of stuff while you're doing it. No cap, right? Make sure that you do it on your own. It should be relatively easy. You got the study guide with the answers. I'll go ahead and I'll even make like a Google Forms practice for y'all to use to kind of see how things go, and y'all can see what you need to work on. There's maybe you were paying attention. You saw my son just climb up the stairs there. It's late. It's time for bed. But that's it. Y'all want to see my dog? My dog is lying here underneath my feet because she's a good dog. You want to see her? If you don't want to see her, you can turn this off. If you do want to see her, here she is. Hey, Molly, come here. Come here, Molly. Oh, there she is. There's the back of her head. All right, Molly, you're going to be famous. You're going to be famous. Whoop. There she is. She's a good dog. She's really muddy right now because she's been playing in the mud outside because she's a good dog and she likes to play and have fun. All right. Awesome, guys. If you need anything, hit me up. I will be available on the Google Hangout and through email, all that good stuff. Hopefully, again, you're doing well, and I will talk to you later.